Hello everyone and welcome into Coach Craig Sports. This is the NBA DFS Core Pick video for today, Tuesday, January 16th. If you're joining me for the very first time, first of all, welcome in. Second of all, this is how today's video will be structured. We'll be going over a recap of yesterday's picks, seeing how they ultimately ended up turning out. Then we'll get moved over to the injuries in play for today. It's a 3-game main slate in total. There are 2 teams that are going to be on the back-to-back, so we will be getting their injury reports a little bit later on today. And then after that, we'll get moved over to DraftKings and FanDuel and talk about my core picks for today. So it's going to be one player at each position: point guard, shooting guard, small forward, power forward, and center. But without further ado, we'll get started with that recap of yesterday's picks. So as I mentioned yesterday, it was a lot tighter pricing. There's not a ton of guys that ultimately ended up paying off, 5x or better. So it was a little bit tougher slate just in general. So keep that in mind as we go through these picks. But at the point guard position on the DraftKings side, we went with Donovan Mitchell, $9,800. Looking for at least 49 got to 53.25, so he was a hit. Then at shooting guard, we had Josh Giddey, $6,500, looking for 32.33 out of him. Got to 21.75, he was a mess. Only played 22 minutes in this game, 2 for 8 shooting from the field, and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander did end up playing in this game. And that was news that we probably got about 20 minutes before the tip-off of this game. So a little bit unfortunate there that we didn't have it earlier on in the day, that we could have pivoted to somebody else, but it is what it is at the end of the day. So wanted to take a chance there on Josh Giddey, especially if Shai Gilgeous-Alexander were to miss. Unfortunately, he did end up playing, so really didn't help out our lineups overall. And then at small forward, switched over to Sam Hauser once we knew that Jaylen Brown was out. Part of me in the back of my head, I kind of forgot that Al Horford was still a guy, and he ultimately ended up starting. Sam Hauser came off the bench. And he only got to 11.75 points at $3,900. We're looking for 19.20 out of him, so he ultimately did end up being a miss. He only played 16 minutes in this game as well. And then at power forward, we had Lauri Markkanen, $8,400, looking for at least 42 out of him, got to 51. So he was a really good hit, probably one of the better hits on the day overall, especially from that higher price group of players. And then last but not least, at the center position, we switched over to Jonte Porter once it was announced that he would be starting for the Toronto Raptors. $4,200, was looking for at least 21 out of him, got to 13, so unfortunately it was a mess. Only ended up playing 15 minutes in this game, 1 for 5 shooting from the field. Looks like he might have been in a little bit of foul trouble too as well, so a little bit unfortunate there. Obviously, we saw the Raptors kind of let him rip in their most recent game, which was a little bit of a blowout too, and then he was in that starting lineup, so did figure he played at least 22 minutes in this game. So the fact that he only played 15 was just a little bit unfortunate there, but I think some of that may have had to do with some of that foul trouble as well. So not the greatest day overall in DraftKings. Obviously, if you had some other good picks to go alongside this core, still had a chance of cashing. Like I said, not a lot of great values on yesterday's slate overall. And then we move over to the FanDuel side. We had Alex Caruso, $5,800. Looking for at least 29 out of him, got to 28.1. I did ultimately end up giving him a push. When I was talking through it yesterday in my projections, I'm like, I have him projected for 28. There is a little bit of upside for more. This game did end up being a blowout as well, so he might have lost a couple minutes at the very end of the game as well. There is a chance that maybe he gets to 30 if he plays those 2 extra minutes, but not mad that we played Alex Caruso just in general yesterday. Then at shooting guard, we had Josh Giddey once again, $7,000, looking for at least 35 out of him. Got to 21.5. He was a mess. Once again, only played 22 minutes, 2 for 8 shooting from the field. And Shai Gilgeous-Alexander ultimately did end up playing in this game overall. Then small forward, I did go to Sam Hauser. Like I said, I kind of forgot a little bit that Al Horford still kind of existed. I thought maybe they'd still start Sam Hauser and then have Horford kind of come off the bench and play that backup center role and kind of, a little bit of backup power forward too at the same time. But it is what it is at the end of the day. We were looking for at least 22, 23 out of Sam Hauser, got to 12. Once again, only played 16 minutes in this game. I did kind of contemplate him and RJ Barrett on the FanDuel side. RJ Barrett was actually one of the guys that performed really well yesterday at $6,500, got 40 points. So if you got to some RJ Barrett yesterday, it was a little bit better for you overall. And then at power forward, we had Lauri Markkanen once again, $8,900, looking for 44, 45 out of him, got to 47.5, so he is a hit once again. And then at center, we switched over to Jonte Porter at $4,500, looking for 22, 23 out of him, got to 13.3, so he was a mess once again. Only played 15 minutes in that game. Despite starting, looked like he was in a little bit of foul trouble, 1 for 5 shooting from the field. And then I just want to mention Jalen Smith too, because he was our kind of initial center on the day. He was $5,000, looking for 25 out of him, got 24.7. Technically, he would have been a push, but the only center that was 5x or better on yesterday's slate was Andre Drummond. Jalen Smith, out of all the centers that people were probably actually playing, I'm not going to say that people weren't actually playing Drummond, but it was less likely that people were playing Drummond. Out of all the normal popular centers, Jalen Smith would have been the highest one, I think, at like 4.7x or something like that. Got to like 24.7 points, so he was a push. He did that in 19 minutes, too. This game was a pretty big blowout. The Pacers did get blown out by the Jazz. If he gets to 24 minutes, he would have been an excellent play. So if you got to some Jalen Smith yesterday, definitely we're not mad about that overall. So like I said, a very hit or miss day just in general. Not a ton of guys that outperformed their price tag just across the board, so made for a very interesting slate overall. Hopefully you guys had a little bit of luck on it, but once again, it was just a little bit tougher slate in general. But with that being said, we'll get moved over to RotoWire and talk about those injuries in play for tonight's slate. So we're going to start off with the Denver Nuggets. They have Kankar and Julian Strawther both listed as out, and then they have their starting five all listed as questionable. So this is a very rare thing. You don't typically see too often where the starting five is all listed as questionable heading into the day. I think it happened one time earlier this year with the Lakers where everybody in their starting five ultimately ended up being questionable. But part of that was due to D'Angelo Russell, who was, a bona fide starter at the time, ended up with like a migraine or something like that too. So it wasn't quite that way headed into the day. But here with Denver, they have everybody listed as questionable. So it's going to be very interesting to see who ultimately ends up playing out of these five. Yeah, if all five miss, there's going to be a ton of value, and we're going to load up on some Denver Nuggets just in general. If it's Jamal Murray that misses, obviously we're going to play a lot of Reggie Jackson. He's going to look really good on DraftKings, going to look decent on FanDuel. If Kentavious Caldwell-Pope misses, then, you're probably going to either Christian Brown or Justin Holiday starting in his place. I like Michael Porter Jr. at his price tag on both sites. We'll see whether or not he plays. If he doesn't, probably going to look at Justin Holiday in his place. And then Aaron Gordon, if he plays, going to look pretty good just in general on both sites. But if he misses, it's probably Peyton Watson starting in his spot. And then Nikola Jokic, if he doesn't play tonight, you're looking at DeAndre Jordan probably getting the start at center and being the ultimate chalk play on tonight's slate overall. And then it'll be very interesting to see what happens on the opposite side with the Philadelphia 76ers. They're on the back-to-back, so we really don't know what they're doing for today or in terms of the injury report. So keep an eye on that as the day moves along. And then we move over to the Sacramento Kings. Keegan Murray listed as questionable. We'll see whether or not he ultimately ends up playing tonight or not. If he's unable to go, probably going to get a lot more Trey Lyles minutes here tonight overall. We'll see whether or not Trey Lyles would actually start in that situation, or if they'd move Harrison Barnes down to the 4 and start like Duarte at the 3. That is a possibility. Or, they could start somebody else too at the same time. Could be a lot of moving pieces there. We'll see ultimately whether or not Keegan Murray plays tonight or not. And then for the Phoenix Suns side, we got Bol Bol and Damon Lee both out once again, so no real changes there. Oklahoma City Thunder are on the back-to-back, so we'll see if anybody ultimately ends up getting ruled out for them, if anybody pops up on the injury report. Obviously, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander was on the injury report all day yesterday. It was a game-time decision, and then got ruled in the last minute, so we'll see whether or not he ultimately ends up playing tonight or not. And then on the Clippers side, we got Diabate and Zubac both listed out once again. So no real changes there from their most recent game. You're going to get some center value there for this Clippers team overall with Daniel Tyson, potentially Mason Plumlee as well. But with that being said, that's a quick little rundown on all the injuries in play for tonight's slate. As always, I will be listing all the injury updates as they do get announced throughout the day down in the comments. So definitely make sure you're checking up on that as the day moves along, as well as the starting lineups as they do get announced throughout the night. But with that being said, we'll get moved over to DraftKings and talk about my core picks over there. So we're going to start off at the point guard position. So right now I have Reggie Jackson. I think there's a decent chance Jamal Murray misses tonight, although I can't say for certain. But even if he plays, Reggie Jackson at $3,900 doesn't look like a bad value at that. He played like 23, 24 minutes last couple of times out. Hadn't really paid off at this price tag in those games, but still has some pretty strong upside even if he's going out there playing 20 minutes. If he goes out there and he's shooting the ball well for that given game, it's going to look pretty good overall. And I don't really mind going to him as kind of that value play. If he's just coming off the bench, I think you could reasonably project him for about 20 points. If Jamal Murray misses, then we're talking Reggie Jackson, probably closer to 25 points. And then just kind of depending on all the other pieces that are out for the Nuggets in that situation, he could even bump up a little bit more from there as well. And then we move over to shooting guard. We got Kevin Huerter here. He's $5,500, looking for 27, 28 out of him. Has not been the greatest year so far for him, although he did return after being injured, played a ton of minutes, and was really good in their most recent game. Buoyed a little bit because he got 10 rebounds in that game. Don't expect that to happen once again. But he made 6 threes in that game as well. So I think there's some pretty significant upside with him tonight, especially if Keegan Murray is out, because they're going to need that extra shooter out there on the court. Keegan Murray obviously stretches the floor. But at the same time, if he's out there, then maybe you want Kevin Huerter on the floor just a little bit more, operating in a similar type of role. So I do like him quite a bit tonight. Currently, I'm projected for about 28, 29 fantasy points. Definitely has some upside for more. Definitely has a lot of downside for less at the same time as well. Then small forward, I'm going with Michael Porter Jr., $6,600. Looking for 33 out of him. Averaging just over 31 so far on the season. Going against the 76ers tonight, I don't mind the matchup for him overall. I think there's a lot of upside that could be here, as we've seen in his 2 most recent games. Obviously, depending on who plays and who doesn't for the Nuggets team is going to play a big factor. So if Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic are both out, probably helps him out a little bit. Although he's a guy that probably operates just a little bit better in that third player type of role or second player type of role at the very least. So definitely have some interest there. We obviously saw the one game earlier this season versus the Clippers where he was supposed to be the best player on the court for the Nuggets, and then it was Reggie Jackson and DeAndre Jordan really leading that charge that night. But with that being said, currently I'm Michael Porter Jr. projected for about 34, 35 fantasy points tonight. Has some pretty strong upside for more, has a little bit of downside for less at the very same time as well. Then we're going to move down to power forward Kawhi Leonard, $8,500, looking for 42, 43 out of him. Averaging 42.5 on the season. So if you just look at his season averages, this is the perfect price tag. 5x value right there off the bat. But, looking at what he's done lately, going against the Oklahoma City Thunder tonight, a little bit of pace-up spot there as well. Definitely do like Kawhi Leonard for, 44, 45. Could have some pretty strong upside for even more than that at the same time as well. Then last but not least, at the center position, we're going with Joel Embiid, and he is ever so slightly cheaper than Nikola Jokic. Nikola Jokic, he's great for the triple-doubles. He's great for a lot of things. His minutes are a little bit more capped than Joel Embiid's in a competitive game. So in a competitive game, Nikola Jokic probably playing about 33, maybe 34 minutes. In a competitive game with Joel Embiid, even coming off the injury on the back-to-back, if he's out there, if he's playing, he's still going to get 36, 37 minutes in a competitive game overall. So personally, I just like that he'll be out there on the court more. He's a little bit cheaper on the DraftKings side, so I do like his upside just ever so slightly more. And then ultimately, if some of these guys for the Nuggets ultimately end up getting ruled out, could help out the 76ers team and Joel Embiid just in general. And with that being said, at $11,400, looking for at least 57 out of him. Currently, I'm projected for 61 tonight. Definitely has a little bit of upside for more. Might have a little bit of downside for less, but at the end of the day, he looks like one of the top scorers on tonight's slate overall. It's probably going to be him or Nikola Jokic, but I do prefer Joel Embiid once again tonight. But with that being said, if you go with these 5 players that I do have listed here, you got $14,100 remaining, $4,700 per player, so not a ton of money left over, but obviously there could be some values open up on this slate overall, whether that's with the Oklahoma City Thunder, whether that's with the 76ers on the back-to-back, or whether it's with the Denver Nuggets and some of their guys ultimately getting ruled out, especially since all 5 starters are listed as questionable at this point in time. But with that being said, we'll move over to FanDuel and talk about my core picks over there as well. So on the FanDuel side, we're going to start off with De'Aaron Fox. He's $8,700. Just seems like too cheap a price tag at this point in time. Looking for 43, 44 out of him, averaging almost 45 so far on the season. Don't hate the matchup tonight against the Suns if it's a competitive back-and-forth game. De'Aaron Fox is probably going to have to be a big reason why, so definitely do like his upside overall tonight. Currently, I'm projected for 45 fantasy points. Has some pretty strong upside for more. Has some downside for less, just because he has not been quite as good as you would expect for De'Aaron Fox in the most recent games for this Kings team overall. Then we're going to go with his teammate, once again, Kevin Huerter, shooting guard. $5,400, looking for 27 out of him. Currently, I'm projected for 28. As I mentioned on DraftKings, he came back from that injury, that ankle injury, that really haunted me the one slate because I played a decent amount of him that game that he did ultimately end up getting hurt. But I do really like him and what he did in his most recent game. I think there's minutes potential there, especially if Keegan Murray's out tonight, to have that extra shooter on the floor in Kevin Huerter. And there's just overall a lot of good signs for him tonight. Obviously, it could ultimately end up going wrong, if he doesn't shoot the ball well, if he doesn't get the minutes. definitely could end up on the wrong side of this, but at the same time, the upside there is going to be one of the better ones on today's slate overall. Then at small forward, we're going to Grayson Allen, a similar type of player. So he's $5,200. We're looking for 26 essentially what he's been averaging so far in the season. Pace up spot versus the Kings tonight. You know, he's had a couple games where they've kind of been duds. We're not probably happy with him at this price tag. But at the same time, he's a guy that consistently gets you right around 27. So he looks like one of the better safe value plays on tonight's slate overall. Then we go down to power forward with Michael Porter Jr., $6,700, so $100 more than he is over on DraftKings. Coming off back-to-back strong performances, kind of think that he has a chance to repeat those versus Philadelphia tonight if he does ultimately end up playing. If he doesn't, then we could open up a whole other can of worms at that point in time. Then we move down to center with Daniel Tice, $4,400, so if you want to pay up to the top for Joel Embiid, Nikola Jokic, Domantas Sabonis, you can definitely do it. I just went with the value option here personally at $4,400. And heck, you can even play Daniel Tice with those guys as well, since he's also power forward eligible, but no Zubac once again tonight. Whether you want to play Daniel Tice or whether you want to play Mason Plumlee, that's kind of up to you at that point in time. We ultimately ended up with Daniel Tice here, who's been starting the last 2 games for them. You know, if he goes out there, if he rebounds the ball well, you know, if he can get a couple buckets here and there, it's going to play off more times than not at this $4,400 price tag. But with that being said, if you go with the 5 players that I do have listed, you have $29,600 remaining, $7,400 per player. So you could definitely make a balance bill if that's something you really want to do, or you can pay up for a star player or 2 and then kind of pay down at a couple other spots. Once again, there is a lot of potential value that could be opening up on this 3-game main slate throughout the day as well. But with that being said, these are my core picks for both FanDuel and DraftKings for today, January 16th. As always, if you have any questions related to NBA DFS, be sure to drop them down in the comments, and I'll get back to you as quickly as possible. Also, be sure to note whether those questions are more FanDuel or DraftKings specific, just so I can best help you as quickly and efficiently as possible. And then, as always, I'll be listing all the injury updates down in the comments throughout the day, as well as the starting lineups as they do get announced throughout the night. So definitely be on the lookout for that, as well as my updated core about 15 to 20 minutes prior to lock. I will leave that as a pinned comment. If there's no changes at that point in time, there would just be a pinned comment saying no changes to the core at this point in time. However, if there are any other changes after that pinned comment comes out, I will leave them as a reply to the pinned comment as well. But with that being said, if you're brand new to my channel, checking out for the very first time, or have yet to subscribe, please consider doing so. Definitely would appreciate it. It helps to build the community that we're trying to build here at Coach Craig Sports, which is one that's truly for you, the viewers, helping you with your DFS. Right now, we just have NBA DFS Monday through Friday in terms of the core pick videos. And then last but not least, if you're interested in sports betting, if you're interested in prop betting whatsoever, be sure to check out the links and promo codes down in the description below for BetUS, Parlay Play, and Prize Picks. If you're a brand new user to any one of those 3 sites, when you make your initial deposit, you will get a first match deposit bonus. For Parlay Play and Prize Picks, it's 100% of your initial deposit up to $100. For BetUS, it's 125% of your initial deposit up to $2,500. So some pretty great opportunities to take advantage of out there if you're interested in sports betting, if you're interested in prop betting whatsoever, and you have any other additional questions, feel free to reach out to me, whether it's down in the comments or on Twitter at Coach Craig Sport, and be more than happy to help you with that journey as well. But with that being said, that's all that I truly have for today's video. Definitely do appreciate each and every one of you tuning in. Definitely means a lot to me. I hope that each and every one of you have a great rest of your day and some pretty good luck in NBA DFS tonight.